Hello, welcome back to Definitive, and hope you're having a good day. Of course, remember to subscribe. I'm sure you already are, and I have another page as well where you can visit that for other links, details on other things, issues. But today the focus is on inflation, and this is on the back of Cop26. And I think why it's important to talk about inflation and COP26 is because the two are intimately linked. COP26 is a focus on the emissions and how to better steward the planet in terms of our use of the resources. And I think that's a good point. However, in terms of the progress and how it will be achieved, spending something like 131 trillion versus an 85 trillion GDP is going to be very difficult to achieve without a lot of pain by changing the current resource or energy driven systems that we have today. A good example of this is how the energy grid works in the United States. And Europe is starting to experience that, or continental Europe, broader Europe, UK included in that. But in terms of the Eurozone, we'll see how that's achieved. But the United Kingdom is recently experiencing shortages, energy issues as a result of their transition from reliable energy sources to what are called renewable or are intermittent energy resources until a battery system is better achieved and until a better availability or drivability of these resources would be better achieved. So if you go back to the United States, and this goes back to 1978 when we had Jimmy Carter in the office, he was doesn't matter that he was a Democrat or a Republican. What he was trying to do was make a transition on the energy system. What's important to note is that he was a electrical engineer. He'd gone to Naval Academy. He went to on to continue in the nuclear subs, and that was with Hyman Rickover, and that was part of the Cold War and the nuclear subs. So this is a nuclear engineer who became president of the United States after becoming governor of Georgia. And in doing so, his idea was to transition from the carbon sources, oil, electricity. You had issues around that. And we had oil embargoes and so forth. And then also over onto solar and wind power. You saw the solar on top of the White House. Those were removed by the incoming president afterwards, which was Reagan. But the point is that you had an electrical engineer going in, setting up new grid legislation and regulation and how it would operate. And this was handed over to bureaucrats, people who didn't have the experience he had, did not have the understanding or the capacity to understand how to work the electrical grid. So California was an early adopter, and then Texas is another adopter. Texas has been one of the largest spenders on renewables, so wind, solar power. And when they had their failure this year of the grid in the wintertime, the renewables were delivering as expected. Okay, so the wind power was delivering around 8%. This was not unexpected. This is what the prediction was for. And so when you see the helicopters de-icing, that's really kind of one of these deceptive stories. Yes, those windmills were iced, but they were expected to be not in use at that time. But the real issue was that you didn't have coal or gas going to the power plant to generate electricity. And what happens there is the natural gas gets delivered first to the households, then to the power plant, okay? This is the same system you have in California, where you have the delivery first to households, then to the power plant. So the problem is if the power plant cannot generate electricity, wide swaths of population, say 40, 50, 60,000 people, these people will be without power. If they happen to have their own generator, can create their own electricity, great, good for them. Most people don't have this. And most of the people who do have solar cells on the roof, who do have windmill access, a lot of these people actually have a higher source of income and a better income equality. So they're not suffering when these things occur because they do have the generators. So the transition is exemplified by these two states, California, which has had utilities go bankrupt, which has had wildfires, not availability to fight them the way they should, have had the electrical systems causing the wildfires. You can go on and on about that. Texas, you saw what happened there, and really you cannot blame the reliables. What you can blame is people's expectation of the delivery of the reliables, except for the people who set it up. those people had the expectation for the 8%, the 10%, 6%. So what they didn't expect was that they were going to have such low availability or delivery of the gas and availability to turn the turbines back on. And that since you don't have the coal backup in place for these plants to turn on when they need it, when you can't get the gas, that creates the trifecta issue. So UK recently experienced this. Thank goodness it wasn't in the middle of winter. And we see the shortage affecting gas prices. They already have high gas prices or gasoline prices because of their tax. You see that occurring in the United States. But so when you think about this, what would be needed to achieve the goals by, say, 2030? And that's something like 13 trillion. And that means an investment into the grid to reset the grid so you can have a hydrogen, so you can have, you won't be using gas for your electric, you won't be using coal for your electric. And currently we are getting a lot of gas from Russia. Russia is supplying a lot of gas through Gazprom, and they are selling it into Europe to generate power. And in Sweden, I mean, we do have companies like Vattenfall, which are setting up hydrogen plants and are engineering electricity from hydrogen. This is more of a gray issue at present because it's a gray generation as opposed to a blue or green. And what happens there is that they're operating those in Germany and in Holland, or they're setting up the operation. Those are not actually online till 2030. So they're not really producing any power for anybody, 45,000 people or 60 or 30,000 people until 2030. So the idea, the concept is great. It looks to be cleaner, which is important because we'll have less pollution. But these will not be deliverable solutions until really 2035, maybe even 2050, unless everything goes exactly as planned. And so with this, I think it's important to note that with the Cop26, China getting a lot of coal, getting coal deliveries from Indonesia since they've cut off their coal supply from Australia, and India also getting a lot of coal right now from Indonesia. And both of these countries, India and China, are building coal-fired plants. Now, the Indian economy is significantly smaller than the Chinese economy, but when you see the COP26 and you see the goals, and ahead of the COP26, you had the G20 meeting and discussions about fuel and generation, electricity and power. And the comments now from China saying, hey, well, the richer nations, they should take the lump of it. It's going to be a lot of pain for a lot of people unless there is a better, more equitable solution achieved. So inflation will continue in line with the energy prices. Inflation will continue in line with the commodity shipping and shippage of goods coming out of Japan. We did see maybe a slowdown in the durable goods report, which could be an indicator that goods deliveries will slow, or it could just be a reflection of a higher end not buying, being smarter and waiting. But another broader indication or implication would be the economy is about to slow, if you took it as a leading indicator. And so when you have the creation of money like we've had the central banks, the ECB, the Fed, discussing inflation and saying it would be transitory, so they did expect it. But now when we see the economy stalling and questioning about how to go forward with their approach to COVID and vaccinations, Europe is well ahead of the United States in terms of total vaccination and total jabs. So it's there's a big risk and a big fear for inflation. And right now, I think one of the best indicators, obviously, follow the energy prices. It's also a good indicator on the cryptos. Cryptos are in line with energy. When the energy goes up, the cryptos go up. I'm still not a crypto fan. The governments will regulate. They will step in. They have done that. A lot of this is just energy reflection. So inflation does look to continue short term, at least 6 months. We'll see what happens. We don't see positive signs or comments coming out of the United States. We don't really see positive signs coming out of China either, based on their statements on energy, and nor do we see real positive signs coming out of Europe. So we'll have the rest of this quarter to kind of deal and dig through information, but it looks like inflation continues at least 6 months. Okay, thank you.